Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. We've got two storm systems lined up that'll make the first full week of November a little bit of a busy one, and the second week of November a chilly one. We're talking severe weather, cold air, and even the first lake effect snow event of this season. If you want to stay ahead of these pattern changes and what they mean for you at home, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. It really helps get these updates out to more people. All right, so let's jump right on in to what's driving the action so far this week. We had a storm system move through the Northeast last night. That brought some very gusty conditions, especially here in State College. We saw wind gusts of 50 miles an hour. I was outside being a little insane, but it was fun nonetheless. But we're going to be tracking another storm system diving out of Canada into the northern tier of the country, across the Great Lakes region and into the Northeast as we head throughout today, tomorrow, and into the early portion of Saturday. And that's because of this dip in the jet stream right up here in Manitoba. That's actually going to be the main driver of this system, but it's also going to phase with this southern branch of the jet stream here that's moving across the western United States. And actually, this jet streak back here Friday is actually going to be bringing an atmospheric river event to the Pacific Northwest, and that's eventually going to branch off a piece of energy that becomes our following storm system. So pay close attention to that. But these two pieces of energy kind of start to phase into the Northeast, and we could see not only some fairly heavy rainfall for a short period of time because we're in this zonal pattern where the jet stream is pretty much west to east with some little short waves, kind of some kinks in the jet stream in between. These are very quick moving systems, so we could get some fairly heavy rainfall, but for a short period of time. So overall, not a washout with any of these systems. But as this starts to move out, we'll see another storm system kind of pummel many areas of the northern tier of the country with some light snow overall. But as it gets into the Northeast, that's when it really gets its act together, and we'll see some more significant snowfall totals as a lake effect snow event. We'll get into that a little bit later, so stay tuned. But first, I want to talk about this first storm system. Right now, it's going to be in Alberta, moving through Saskatchewan and Manitoba throughout the day today, drops into the northern tier of the country, and later on today and into the early morning hours of Friday, we'll see some light rain across areas of Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, and into Michigan. Very little snow with this system. It's just not cold enough, but this will be bringing in some of the cold for our next storm system in the northern tier of the country. That is going to be bringing in some snowfall, not going to be, our half-foot snowfall totals that we'll be expecting about a month and a half from now, but maybe a quick coating to 2 inches of snow across many areas of the northern plains. And as this system works its way into the Northeast, we'll see it kind of pull in some Gulf moisture, and we have the potential for a severe weather threat across the Tennessee and Ohio River valleys on Friday because of that as this cold front moves through. And we'll see some heavy showers in the Northeast, but again, very quick hitting, very quick moving. This storm system is already on its way out after bringing some decent but definitely needed rainfall to the Northeast and even some snow in northern Maine. And it's already on its way out by Saturday morning. And then we'll start talking about our next storm system that is going to be moving out of the Pacific Northwest and kind of taking a very similar path, but a little bit more snowfall. Again, maybe a quick coating of 2 inches in the northern plains. And as this system makes its way into the Northeast, we'll see some more significant impacts, and we'll talk about that again just in another second here. I want to talk about overall our precipitation totals. Again, mostly rain with this system. That's going to be impacting through Saturday morning. And we could see maybe a half an inch if you're lucky in areas of the Great Lakes and Northeast regions. Areas that see some of those severe thunderstorms could pick up upwards of an inch in the Tennessee River Valley in the southeast. But overall, not going to be a washout, but definitely some beneficial rainfall for many areas that are in drought conditions right now. But let's zoom in on that severe weather threat. We have a level 2 out of 5 risk across areas of central Tennessee and Kentucky, predominantly for hail, but there's also a secondary threat of maybe an isolated weak tornado, as well as some strong gusty winds. And we can zoom in on this using our composite reflectivity values here. So this is right around, call it noon Friday Central Time. And as we step through the next few hours, we'll start to see these little areas, these call them like beans on these higher resolution models. Obviously, they're not super high res that we can get exact radar imagery, but some of these images of some cells starting to pop up in areas of Kentucky and Tennessee. So by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we'll start to see those pop up. And as they're starting to pop up is actually the best chance for an isolated weak tornado. We're talking about maybe EF0 to EF1 tornadoes, nothing significant in terms of if we were talking about a system like this in, March through May, where we could be talking about a significant cold front moving in that could produce EF2 or EF3 tornadoes in the southeast. So that is the one positive side of this. But as this system kind of continues to drape itself to the south and east, this becomes very linear. So at this point, we still have these higher reflectivity values, and those could be where that hail is, those larger values of hail. But overall, I think as we go throughout the day on Friday, the risk of tornadoes starts to decrease significantly. And we can kind of see this in our supercell composite index here. Again, if this was our March through May prime severe weather season, we would be trying to point out any areas in the tens on this chart. But right now, our highest values are kind of approaching 10, but 7 to 9 in Mississippi here. And in our prime area that we're looking at, where kind of everything lines up, we have our instability, we have the moisture, and we have that source of lift with a cold front across Tennessee and Kentucky. We're talking about supercell composite index values of 2 to 5. So again, something to stay aware of throughout the day on Friday, but could be much worse if this was a different time of year. But since we're kind of in this secondary, smaller peak of severe weather in the fall season, this is definitely not as bad as anybody would think if it was a March, April, May storm system. So let's take a look at our second storm that will be moving in later on this weekend and into early next week. So again, here's our upper level air pattern, and we have this northern piece of energy here in Manitoba and Ontario. We have another little shortwave here, this little kink in these lines, these ISO heights. And that is going to be our main player as we go into the latter half of this weekend. Those two pieces of energy phase together, and we get this really deep dip in the jet stream, this really deep trough. That's going to allow for two things. One, a strengthening storm system as it moves into areas of the Northeast throughout Sunday and into Monday, as well as this cold air that's kind of been kept up in Canada starts to drop into the central and eastern United States, and that's going to allow for our lake effect snow machine to kick on, and we could see some significant snowfall totals for this early portion of the winter season, especially the lake effect snow season there across areas of Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, and Lake Erie. A little bit less so on Lake Ontario because of the wind direction. We'll get into that in just a second. But here I want to talk about these energy phases a little bit more. So here's our main piece of energy here across many areas of Ontario, Manitoba, back into Saskatchewan. A short wave starting to move through the Dakotas. And as these two pieces of energy phase into the Northeast, you can see this is a lot of energy and kind of like a bowling ball moving through the Northeast. And that's going to allow for, on the backside of this strengthening low pressure system, some stronger winds moving across the lakes. And that's going to really power this lake effect snow machine as it gets going into the early portion of next week. And I want to show you a little bit about how cold it's going to get. So this little difference between the green and this blue color, that is what we call the 540 line. That is 540 decameters, so 5,400 meters, and that is between the 1,000 millibar level and the 500 millibar level. So typically the surface and about halfway up into the atmosphere. And the lower the difference, the lower the thickness between those two equal pressure surfaces is typically means, because cold air is more dense, the lower the average temperature in that column. So as this area of blues starts to move into the Northeast, that's where we're going to see the potential for some snowfall. Usually this 540 line is our first indication that we could be seeing flakes instead of drops. And the other thing I want to notice here, these lines of ISO heights, as we call them, the wind typically follows these lines pretty much parallel. So as we go throughout Monday, we'll see predominantly a northerly to north-northwesterly flow across Lake Superior and Lake Michigan. That's where we could be seeing the lake effect snow bands set up there. And then as we go throughout Tuesday, we get a little bit more of a west-northwesterly flow across Lake Erie, and we could see some significant snowfall totals right along the lake shore there because of the lake effect snow machine. And we'll talk about the actual snowfall totals here in just a second. So here's an example on our global models. We're about 5 days out, so no high resolution model guidance yet, but stay tuned here by subscribing and clicking that bell for the actual high resolution data on this lake effect snow event. But you can see some lake effect snow bands starting to pop up here on one of our global models. This is the European model, if anyone was wondering. And as we take a look at our national blend of models, so every model that gets outputted by the National Weather Service and NOAA all gets compiled into this one model and then averaged out. So these are our average snowfall values going out to, this is 7 a.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. Anywhere in the yellows here is over 6 inches of snow. So along the Lake Erie lakeshore, across northeast Ohio, northwest Pennsylvania, western New York, southern western New York, as well as areas of western Michigan, areas of northern Indiana, the UP of Michigan could even get closer to a foot of snow because of this lake effect snow machine. So really got to start looking into this more. I mean, winter is surely coming now. It has been a very wild week. So November is kicking off with some serious variety. Storms, snow, real taste of winter right around the corner. So if you found this breakdown of the weather helpful, drop a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss my next update. And hey, I just opened up my community tab here on YouTube. I'll be posting updates, weather discussion threads, and I'd love to see your weather pictures or thoughts there. I promise I'll respond to every post in that thread. It's a great way to keep the conversation going beyond just these videos. So thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe, stay warm, and I'll see you guys again very soon.